Hello everyone, this is part 14 of What If Naruto Had a Hug That Changed Everything, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist. To see more, comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. The very Malaiscon he finished his sentence, Neji felt the air in the center of his body forcefully expand and retract, before shoot up to his head, then back down again, causing him an excruciating session of nausea that sent him reeling for air. The flabbergasted Hyuga glared downward only to see Naruto with half of his forearm drived into his stomach. Neji's body tensed to a degree that he wasn't used to at all as veins blew out from many different parts of his form. Feeling the level of pain that he had just dealt the bastard, Naruto smiled proudly before looking up and staring mockingly at the pale, no, even paler-skinned Genin as he choked and gasped. "Oh my, I'm not doing anything to make you uncomfortable, am I?" the blonde Genin mocked. Neji's teeth bared as he intensified his glare. "Yeah. I'll show you uncomfortable, you little," he uncharacteristically choked out, before Naruto slowly removed his limb from his opponent's stomach, causing him to roar out in exasperation. Neji stumbled back in a daze of nausea, but kept his Byakugan as steady as ever, before hardening a fighting stance again. "This is crazy. He wasn't nearly this fast when I saw him fight last time. My Byakugan can hardly track his movements. Not only that, but he seems to have more stamina, more strength and control," Neji thought as he glared into Naruto's eyes. This won't be as easy as I originally thought. Time to kick things up a notch or two." With that last thought, Neji led the initial charge at Naruto with increased speed that made the blonde Genin smile before launching 3 well-aimed shuriken at the charging Hyuga. While running, Neji easily avoided the shuriken by crouching down, sliding upon the ground before using the self-given momentum to deliver a staggering kick to Naruto's chin. The blue-eyed nin allowed his body to lift from the air, due to the force of the blow before easily recovering himself only to see Neji ascending after him. Naruto noticed his opponent prepping a kentetsu shot and prepared to defend against it. Naruto would have easily fended the blow off if Neji hadn't immediately switched his attack to a whirling spin kick that caught the shaggy-haired blonde on the side of his head, sending him spinning out of the air and hard onto the ground. Rolling and tumbling upon the ground, Naruto managed to catch himself, doing a series of reversed somersaults before landing on his feet. The black-clad Genin shot his head up only to see Neji right in his face. Big mistake. Instead of getting startled, Naruto vanished again and reappeared right beside the Hyuga. Then vanished a second time, reappearing above him. Then again, only this time he appeared from behind. With his quick wit, Neji spun his body while crouching down to leg sweep Naruto, but the blue-eyed boy jumped up and over the hue-eyed Hyuga, using the same cage bushin maneuver as last time. Before landing on the ground and not giving him time to think, Naruto launched his heel to the back of the crouched Neji's head, stumbling him forward to the clone, who took it on home with a staggering uppercut to the chin, sending him flying up and over the real Naruto. After hitting the ground with almost a comical thud, Neji struggled greatly to recompose himself whilst rising to all fours. Naruto saw Neji's struggle and smiled. "HMPH. Ya know what? I just noticed something. Through the entire time I've been fighting you, I haven't heard you make any cracks about destiny and junk. Forget your life-changing speeches at home, Neji," he mocked boldly. Hearing his taunting voice, the Hyuga shot back to his feet and glared at his opponent again before reestablishing his fighting stance. It was safe to say that Naruto was impressed with his level of focus. Wow. When the people around town said that Neji was the strongest of the Leaf Genin, they weren't kidding. I didn't think he'd be this strong. But then again, I seen my fair share of changes over the time of training, and I'm loving every moment of it, Naruto thought happily to himself. Okay. Get ready, Neji, 'cause what I have in store for you ain't nothing to sniff at. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. At his whim, 10 Sardao clones materialized around Naruto. Neji frowned and prepared himself. "Alright fellas, show our guest a good time. HOORAAAAAAAAH, the clones simultaneously bellowed, before vanishing with the same speed that the original possessed. Neji flinched, Anko and Abiki had been sitting in his personal chamber. The brunette female had been reading through a black journal given to her by Abiki. Abiki, how long had you had this? She asked with notable uneasiness as she read through the confidential files. The trench-coated sadist cracked a bold smirk. We ninja weren't trained in the aspects of stealth for nothing, ya know, he said. Anko stopped reading the Dietzle files and shot a very incredulous stare at her fellow Junin. Oh, don't tell me you stole this, she said with a little dread. Abiki merely crossed his arms as a response and Anko smiled. You know, you could get arrested or possibly ked for having this, the brown-coated female suggested without waning her smile. I know, even though the possibility of that thing returning to life was virtually 1,000,000 to 1, I always kept this journal close, just in case we ever needed to figure anything out, but mostly kept it to remind myself of that dreadful day and never forget, Abiki said solemnly. Anko's smile completely vanished as she looked down. Hey, it's not like you need a journal to remember that blood-sucking cretin, she said, making a pitiful attempt to lighten the mood, before returning to reading the aged journal. Regardless, everything that has ever been recorded in his history is right there in that journal. We can only hope that he doesn't come back before we can prepare ourselves, Abiki said with a slight grimace. Anko looked at the scar-faced nin before rising from her seat. Damn it. This is so frustrating. No matter what happens, we can't cancel the Chunin exams, but if that freak shows up again, we both know what could happen, and there's always that chance. We can only pray that he doesn't until it all ends. That way, we can warn Lord Hokage of all of this madness before it's too late, Abiki said. Okay. Neji was officially exasperated by the amount of stamina and strength he was putting out to hold his own. The 10 clone that he faced were not letting up in the absolute slightest, and Neji was having a pretty hard time keeping up. The fact that he basically had 10 supercharged Narutos on his ass only made his chances for victory rather slim. Despite his stealthy and dexterous movement and well-balanced flurry of attacks, the young Hyuga knew he could not dodge, flip, jump, roll and even strafe from his attackers for too long. Top that off with the fact that he also had a bit of trouble hitting them. Whatever Naruto did in his training really helped. But what stood out the most was that the real Naruto was standing right where he was when he summoned the clones. To everyone who knew the blue-eyed Kitsune personally, that was just plain weird. Usually Naruto would be right up there with, well, himself and have grand ol' time kicking some ass. This time, however, he just stared at the action with a great level of intent and focus, crossing his arms as though he were waiting for something. Tenten saw the eager look in Naruto's eyes and almost immediately wised up to his method. Whoa. Neji, he's in real trouble, now. I know what you're doing, Naruto-kun. You're waiting to see if there's anything that you need to worry about while fighting him, she said insightfully. Against her consent, a amused and vastly impressed smile crept upon Tenten's face as she watched the action ensue. Not bad, Naruto-kun. Not bad. Neji strained himself to harden his focus and his resolve to gain the upper hand in this struggle. Letting out a bellow of anguish and fire, the pale-eyed prodigy really cranked it out and began dealing a decent amount of damage. And for a shadow clone, decent is the equivalent of fatal. After a wildly entertaining session of unruly movements, combo counters and overall ass-whooping, Neji was able to cut the numbers of the clones down to a minimum of 5. Unfortunately for the Hyuga, the clones wised up and vanished simultaneously, causing Neji to freeze in his tracks and await the next strike. With not much time to think at all, Neji was suddenly surrounded by all of the clones in an inescapable circle. All sides were sealed and they were closing in too fast. Neji almost panicked, but hardened his resolve, wondrous results of his horrendous training, allowing the clones to throw their undoubtedly painful attacks. At first, a surprised gasp seeped from the crowd, only to see the fists of all of the clones glow with chakra. Neji frowned before acting immediately by spinning in a flurry of power that vanquished all of the clones in one flash of glory. Naruto batted an eye in realization as he carefully street USD what he could. He, then, vanished in a burst of speed. Once Neji had stopped spinning, he faced Naruto with fire in his eyes but with a highly exhausted body only to see that he was nowhere in sight. These thoughts could not be dwelled on as Naruto reappeared directly a few feet above Neji, screaming his head off with his elbow reeled in upward. The Hyuga was caught completely off guard by this maneuver since he used a high burst of his chakra and his body still needed a few seconds to regain feeling and strength. He didn't have that kind of time. Realizing the inevitable, the only counter Neji could deliver was a glare to the soul and an equally loud scream before Naruto and his elbow came crashing down on his frontal cranium, sending a shockwave of power and pain rippling through the ground and nearly cracking it. The instant his feet made contact with the ground, Naruto jumped back to a greater distance and smiled at Neji, who was hunched over with his mouth gaped, his eyes bloodshot and practically budging out of his head. Wow Neji, you look rather surprised. Or did you drop something? Naruto mocked again. I really must say that I thank you for showing me that new technique of yours so soon, regardless of how utterly foolish it was. But I gotta admit, it's a pretty vexing move. I'll be sure to watch out for that one. Royally distraught, Neji struggled greatly to restore his focus with the unrelenting pain that burned through his bleeding cranium. Naruto, on the other hand, was through with this little game. He knew full damn well that if he let this drag on for too long, then the Hyuga could find a way around his attacks and pick his tenketsu off, rendering him unable to use his techniques. With these thoughts in mind, Naruto's smile vanished before he charged at his opponent with no intention of holding anything else back. Neji had similar thoughts running through his head. He also knew that if he allowed the fight to continue for too long, Naruto could rule the day with his new strength. Seeing the shaggy-haired genin charge at him and get ever so close, the brown-haired prodigy forced himself for preparation just in time to block one of Naruto's sly punches aimed for his face. The heat of this brawl was really starting to get Sakura. And that factor was made painfully obvious, due to the fact that she was unintentionally caressing her hands together and sweating like hell. She stared wildly at the action while inwardly cheering Naruto on, growing more and more excited. Come on, Naruto. You can do this. Come on, she thought. Cha. F me. F me. F me. FME, Ina Sakura shouted with vigor. Ino was having a similar dilemma as she gandered at the intensity below. She was unwittingly smiling and trembling with anticipation with her hands cupped to her knees. She has never seen such a brawl. Wow. This is good. This is great. The best I've seen, Ino inwardly exclaimed before she was overtaken with fanatic energy. Go Naruto, she shouted out loud without caring in the slightest as to who may have been gawking at her, even if that someone was right next to her. The excitement of this monumental occasion was really contagious. It was actually more than enough for Kiba and Hinata to peer at the edge of their seats. Too bad the excitement was a little rough on Hinata's heart, seen as how it was still in pretty bad shape after her fight with Neji. She coughed twice, gaining the immediate attention of the protective Kiba. Hinata, you okay? He asked with his natural concern. The hue-eyed girl simply smiled back at Kiba with reassuring nod before glancing back down at the action. Heart problems or not, this was simply something that she could not miss. At a high platform, somewhere near the Chunin Stadium, the mysterious forms of Nekoshi and Kitsune gandered intently at the fight between Naruto and Neji. Nekoshi, himself, had to cross his arms in order to keep from shouting obnoxious cheers, trembling all the while. Kitsune sat on the edge of the platform next to Nekoshi in a feminine-like manner as she too had to contain her abundant excitement. Ho 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 ho, Nekoshi shuddered. Magnificent. Absolutely magnificent power. You were right Kitsune, Sensei's judgment on the matter was bang on. This boy's potential is positively marvelous, he said. Kitsune involuntarily shuddered as well. Yes. I've been aching to behold this for so long. Indeed, the time act shall soon be upon us all. And then, she trailed off. His final test will at last be at hand, Nekoshi finished, before they both enjoyed the pounding of the century. At a high platform, somewhere near the Chunin Stadium, the mysterious forms of Nekoshi and Kitsune gandered intently at the fight between Naruto and Neji. Nekoshi, himself, had to cross his arms in order to keep from shouting obnoxious cheers, trembling all the while. Kitsune sat on the edge of the platform next to Nekoshi in a feminine-like manner as she too had to contain her abundant excitement. Ho 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 ho, Nekoshi shuddered. Magnificent. Absolutely magnificent power. You were right Kitsune, Sensei's judgment on the matter was bang on. This boy's potential is positively marvelous, he said. Kitsune involuntarily shuddered as well. Yes. I've been aching to behold this for so long. Indeed, the time act shall soon be upon us all. And then, she trailed off. His final test will at last be at hand, Nekoshi finished, before they both enjoyed the pounding of the century. Minutes have passed, and the crowd was going nuts. The fight between Naruto and Neji has picked up tremendously with all the gloves thrown to the ground, no holds barred. The roars of the crowd picked up just as gradually as the action in the arena did. Every mind-bending maneuver that these two genin demonstrated was beyond that which any of the people could have anticipated, and it was driving them wild. The now battle-scarred Neji crashed to the ground on his feet after taking a mighty blow from the equally battered Naruto, who instantly appeared behind him with his leg cranked back. Delivering a staggering kick, Neji timingly ducked down and countered with a rising high kick that connected with the clear side of Naruto's face, sending him flying into the air. The blonde genin easily regained his balance to quickly counter whatever his hue-eyed opponent had to throw at him. Without giving Naruto the time to think, Neji launched himself into the air after him and engaged him in a brutal, vicious taijutsu struggle. Quick-paced, hard-hitting, crazy in every sense of the word. This brief struggle sent ripples of power throughout the stadium as the two fighters slowly descended to the ground. After what felt like an eternity of adversity, Naruto and Neji made contact with the ground only to burst off away from each other. Without stopping for a second, Naruto relished the initial charge, which Neji prepared for. Throwing several lightning-quick punches and kicks, the black-clad boy made doubly sure not to leave any open spots in his attacks, which he was doing perfectly, leaving Neji to do nothing but defend. Eventually, Naruto quickly launched his hand forward and viciously snatched Neji's face, throwing the Hyuga off balance completely. The blonde kitsune ran across the ground with Neji's face in hand, before he reeled his arm back and threw his opponent down. However, before Neji hit the ground, he locked his arms around Naruto's, spun horizontally and reversed the attack with a slam of his own, crashing Naruto's back into the ground, thus creating a circular burst of dust. Recovering immediately, the blonde genin latched his hand to Neji's shirt, flipped him over and ferociously plunged his upper body into the earth, shattering it and bursting a much bigger cloud of debris throughout the arena. Naruto then sped his opponent's body out of the ground with his hands still latched upon his shirt and began repeatedly slamming him upon different sections of the earth before kicking him away. Gaining an intense roar from the crowd. Rolling and tumbling quite a distance before stopping himself, Neji was suddenly surrounded by 5 shadow clones prepped to destroy. In a moment of desperation, the young Hyuga once again destroyed the clones with his rotation Tekinokui. Taking the golden opportunity, Naruto dashed at Neji while he was open for an attack. What he didn't expect was Neji breaking his body's limitations to recover instantaneously, delivering a staggering counter by savagely shoving an open palm tenketsu shot directly upon his diaphragm area, sending the blonde skidding back. Despite the intense pain that coursed through his body, Naruto took only a few precious seconds to recompose his senses before dashing at his opponent again. Once Naruto got close enough, Neji threw another tenketsu shot only to see the form vanish right through him before reappearing on the same collision course and ramming his shoulder into the Hyuga's face, sending him flying. Meanwhile, at an old abandoned building of Konoha, the surrounding area was as dark as night with very little light shimmering through the cracks and fault lines of the shoddy shack. The building was completely deserted, devoid of any and all accessories. Just an empty shelter with bat resting on the ceiling. But they weren't the only living creatures hanging upon the ceiling. Resting with them was the deeply pondering form of the blood-devouring man whom was responsible for the desolation of Post Town's population, completely shrouded by the darkness that swallowed the area. Quote. HMMR. My carelessness in that forest was intolerable. I can't believe that I allowed Ashima to slip from my grasp so easily, and by Shinobi from Konoha to top it off. Really, if things don't start heating up soon, my plans will all be for naught and these improbabilities would be more than I can bear, he thought. As his thoughts progressed, the large frightening man effortlessly snatched a flying bat from midair before chomping down upon its head, thus spinning it off, spit the separated limb to the ground, engulfed the entire body in his mouth and gulped it down. I just hope that Nekoshi and Kitsune were able to dispose of Ashima before she could divulge any information about the organization. After all, the fact that I was spotted by ninja from Konoha only makes things more complicated. The village will start looking for anything suspicious, and if Sarutobi gains wind of my existence too soon, Everything that I have hoped for could be out of my reach for a long time, he pondered before letting himself silently drop to the ground. I guess this means that I'll have to spend less time playing with my food. Thanks to my meal in Oto, however, I can be a bit more inconspicuous. The large shadow of dominance then marched from out of the darkness of the building and into the unsuspecting population of Konoha. Along the less crowded roads of the village, one of Naruto's close friends, Yoshana the store owner, hope you guys can remember what she looks like. If not, then read chapter 7, was happily enjoying her day off by walking all of her frustration away. The blue-haired female always enjoyed the simplest of life's gifts, be it a glass of water or a walk in the park. This was just one of the moments where she could just let loose and adore the simplicity of it all. To Yoshana, it was all that was needed to maintain a happy life instead of having relying on 2-year vacations or something like that. Just as she turned a corner, Yoshana bumped straight into a large and well-built chest. She stumbled back and waved her hands apologetically. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't see you, she said. The man she bumped into was tall and lean with short and spiky black hair, gentle black eyes and a shapely round face. His clothes were simple and plain, consisting of a white t-shirt, blue jeans and average shinobi sandals. He raised a dismissive to Asia Yoshana that she done no wrong. No, don't worry. I wasn't looking where I was going, he said with a smoothing and surprisingly calming voice. By the way, could you tell me where I might find the Chunin Stadium? I want to get there to see the action. Yoshana couldn't help but chuckle at her new acquaintance. Silly. The Chunin exams already started, she informed, causing the man's eye to twitch. He said in a calm yet disappointed voice, lowering his head. Yoshana chuckled again before locking her eyes with the stranger. Hey. You're not from around here, are you? She asked with a knowing smirk. The large man looked down at the blue-haired store owner. Actually, no. I'm visiting here with my 2 children. They told me to meet them at the Chunin Stadium but I lost my way. Old age can really get the better of me sometimes, he said while scratching the back of his head. Yoshana raised an eyebrow. Oh, so your father, huh? She asked. Why, yes, but, like most children of their years, they can be quite the handful, the man said with his eyes dimming, but, they're still my family. Yoshana was actually charmed by this guy's nobility. She thought it would be pretty cool to hang out with the guy, but something was weird. Say, have we met? She asked as she unconsciously sized him up from head to toe. I don't know how, but it feels like I've seen you before. Well, this wouldn't be the first time I've been in Konoha. I'm a bit of a traveler, so to speak, the man mentioned. Really? When was the last time you swung by? She asked, placing her hand on her hips. Oh, about? 20 years ago. Yoshana's eyes widened. 20 years ago. But, wait, then you. Yes, young lady, I was there during those dreadful times. The big monster of Konoha, yeah, that's what they called it. Those were dark days, the man slightly grimaced. Yoshana sn her arms around herself and shivered. Yeah. I can still remember what that thing did. He actually fed on our people, he terrorized us. Hey, it's funny but I can vividly remember those days. Living in fear, hiding and running, shudders, I was only 5, and I can still remember the horror of those days, she said while on the verge of tears. The black-haired man saw Yoshana's change in attitude and placed a comforting hand upon her shoulder. There, young lady. There's nothing more to worry about. The monster is gone and Konoha is lavishing in a moment of peace, he said with his comforting tone. The brown-eyed woman smiled at the kind man. Hey. I take it that you've seen your fair share of the carnage, huh? The man shrugged. More or less, he said, completely switching to a nonchalant mood. Yoshana's smile brightened as she inwardly decided that this guy was alright. I'm Yoshana. What's your name? Gasp. She was suddenly struck with startlement at the sight of the large man's canine teeth as he smiled at her. They were huge. I am Kuro, he silently hissed, causing Yoshana to start trembling. The blue-haired female was at a standstill with terror. In that instant, the memories of those horrible days 20 years ago flashed throughout the corridors of her mind. The very same beast that terrorized Konoha for a time, years previously, was standing right in front of her with ravenous intent. Although he concealed his true form behind a flawless henge technique, the teeth and the voice gave it away. Before Yoshana even had the chance to scream for her miserable life, Kuro instantly gripped his hand upon the poor girl's en and forced her head to the side, exposing her en. I am that monster, and you shall become my nourishment, the beast growled before viciously plunging his long canines into poor Yoshana en, gushing pints of blood all over the place. In vain, Yoshana tried to let out a screech for help as she felt her energy leave her at an alarming rate. She tried again only to feel Kuro twist and strengthen his death GS upon her en, paralyzing her greatly. As the world around her became blurred and her hearing plunged into a deafening stillness, Yoshana could hear the monotonous and heart-stopping sounds of gulping. Within seconds, the unfortunate woman's features began to lose life and complexity. Her skin became dry and discolored and her bones began to show through her body. In time, all strength in her was gone as her eyes rolled to the back of her head. She then dropped to the ground but not before Kuro caught her lifeless form and vanished within the darkness, taking the shriveled Yoshana with him. Back at the Chunin Stadium, the crowd was roaring with excited cheers even more than before as the ferocious brawl between Naruto and Neji began to pick up in brutality. The two worn and torn genin had exhausted a great deal of their chakra, trying to best one another in every aspect. As far as anyone else could tell, they were pretty much even, but it was hard to tell during certain parts of the massive struggle. Naruto and Neji began to mostly rely on brute physical strength, willpower and battle smarts to come out on top, and so far the most they've managed to do with that was pound each other senseless with high-speed taijutsu and slick maneuvers to gain the advantage, despite the fact that Neji still had a bit more chakra over Naruto. But as the logic stood, they were even. After being knocked away by an attack from Neji, Naruto hit the ground face first, giving the Hyuga the opportunity to freely dash at him. But the quick-witted Uzumaki pushed himself off the ground and into the air before landing on his feet with his back turned to Neji, who came at Naruto with an open palm to the back. Reacting just in time, the black-clad nin strafed to the side, allowing Neji's palm to completely pass his body. With the arm still extended, Naruto quickly latched his own arm around it and launched his head back, crashing it into Neji's face. Stumbling back for only a second, the Hyuga shook off the pain and came at Naruto with a kick to the kidneys, which the blonde barely managed to block with his forearm. After a brief stare down of adversity, Naruto whirled around to completely face his fellow battle freak, simultaneously throwing a massive punch aimed for Neji's face. The attack was thwarted with a punch from the pale-skinned boy, clashing with his rival's fist. A struggle of bone-rattling clashes ensued. Fists, shins, knees, elbows and even heads bashed into each other in a monument squall for supremacy. After a facial double hit from both genin, they slid back a bit before shoot after each other again, locking their hand together in a contest of strength. With both nin growling and grunting at each other while glaring the fires of hell into the soul of one another, Naruto and Neji pushed forward with everything they could possibly muster despite how futile it was to push each other back, further enforcing that same one golden logic. They were even. As the battle for dominance continued, the growls and grunts steadily morphed into roars of anguish and burning effort. The force of the ordeal locking the arena in a chamber of scorching heat, figuratively speaking, of course. The ground beneath was soon to weaken underneath the erratic prowess and strength that these two genin put out. It was obvious to everyone that these two had reached their limit, but that only intensified the action and further excited the crowd. In a matter of seconds, the ground beneath them cracked and faltered. Shortly afterwards, both fighters simultaneously switched maneuvers by releasing the grips and power kicking each other's faces, sending them spinning away from one another. But, the second their feet touched ground they right back at each other and engaged in the most vicious and quick-paced taijutsu yet, lashing out and uses their faces to block. Yowza. Ino and Sakura, come on. Tear his face off, Naruto. Kiba. Yeaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaaa Destroy him. Tenten. My god. This is fantastic. Nobody fight like this anymore. Come on Neji. Show. MWHOES large and in charge. Left. Right. Duck AAAWW, you're terrible. WHO taught you how to fight, anyway. Ooh. That's right. KEEP, M up. Kick and jab, kick and jab, kick and jab. Tear him to SHREEEEEEEEEDS. Hinata. Cough cough. X. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.